I'm good. So tell us about Colorpop. What is that?
Hi, so I am here. It is weekend one of our photography workshop, Colorpop. It's an event that my co host Ashley and I have been hosting for 4 years now for creative portrait photographers from around the world to come join, learn, shoot together. We have 20 photographers here right now that are all from around the US, and we have a photographer from Holland somewhere back here. And throughout the weekend of our event, we do 10 styled photo shoots in 3 days. Which we just wrapped last night, our final one. So we're all a little bit tired, but it's been a blast. And we're excited to learn from you about how we can use Photoshop and Lightroom to edit the images we took.
Great. And when you say here, where's here?
Oh, here in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Got it.
We we shoot in studio, and we've also shot at the sand dunes, the salt flats, and like a big rolling hill. So we kind of go all over to the iconic spots around here.
And is there, like, it seems like there was a particular, I don't know if it's a theme or just something you guys do all the time. This one seemed like it was more of a circus theme. Is that new or regular, or how's that work?
So one of the concepts that we did was circus themed. We had 5 different models at different stations that each represented kind of like a traditional circus trope. We had like a juggler, a tightrope walker, ringleader, a clown, things like that. And our attendees rotate from station to station to get their shots. So those are the images we'll be working on today. So yeah, it was really fun.
Great. And what are some of the themes you've had in the past?
Well, this year we had all kinds of themes. We shot at the sand dunes. We did like a sun and moon eclipse theme. We made
Cool.
some giant abstract shapes. In studio, we had a totally monochromatic room. We did sort of a traditional, like 1950s cakes. We did colored lights. We did lots and lots of textiles. We've done all different types of things. We've had live llamas join us at our shoots. So
Wow.
it's been a whirlwind, yes.
Well, we have people coming in from all over the world, including George, all the way from Costa Rica. So welcome, George, and welcome on, is it Nighton? Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, but welcome. And I'm going to, without further ado, get right into it. So let's jump over to, I think I'm going to start off in Lightroom first. So let me turn on my Lightroom view there, and let's go ahead. You should now see Lightroom.
Yes.
Yes, great. And let's see, I think I also have Lightroom Classic open. Yep, that's going to be for your stuff that we're going to do in a few minutes. Okay, so let's start off with a few new changes to Lightroom, the whole Lightroom ecosystem. So whether you're using Lightroom on your phone, Lightroom on your iPad, Lightroom on your Windows computer, Lightroom on your Mac, Lightroom Classic, or Camera Raw. The changes I'm about to show you have been across the board. So I'm showing it in Lightroom on the desktop only because I'm reserving Lightroom Classic for the event today. But I could just as easily do these same things in Lightroom Classic. All right, so let's pop over to this first image, which I debuted this image at Max London a couple of weeks ago. And it was the first time I actually did a sneak peek of the new generative remove feature that is now available in the Lightroom ecosystem across the board. So if you remember, there's a remove tool in Lightroom, and the remove tool traditionally has been great for small little things like a speck on someone's shirt or hair out of place or a little thing in the background you just kind of wanted to remove. But for something complicated, it just wasn't designed for that. So for example, I'll show it to you here. Let's say I wanted to remove this sign on this table, this little food table here. We can't read it anyway. And let's say I want to get rid of it. Now, if I use the old remove tool to do that, or the old way to do that, I would just brush it like this. And then as soon as I let go, it would remove it. But you kind of see what it left behind doesn't really look like, it's all blurry. It looks like, because it doesn't know what that should be, because it only has the surrounding pixels to use. Now I'm going to undo that, put it back. And now you'll notice in the remove tool, there's a new generative AI checkbox. And on desktop, there is object aware. And the reason I'm making that distinction is because object aware is not on mobile at this point. I won't say yet because then that insinuates that it's coming. I don't know if it's coming. So I'm going to say it's not on mobile. I'll explain the difference between the two. So let's go ahead and turn them both on. And object aware is when you want a mask created around a specific object. You don't always need that. As a matter of fact, it sometimes works better without it. So, for example, if I wanted to mask the sign, I can go ahead and do the same brush strokes around it. And even though I'm going way outside the sign area, when I let go, the first calculation it makes is the mask for the sign. So now you see the sign is perfectly masked. That's because of object aware. If I had object aware turned off, then it would be the whole thing that I painted, and it wouldn't necessarily be around the object. Now, the reason I say that this is something you might not want to always use is because sometimes generative remove does a better job when you give it a more broad selection or mask. So when you paint outside the lines more, it tends to do a better job than trying to make it tight around the object. So I'm going to go ahead and make my brush a little smaller and also get the little stem down here as well. And again, when I let go, it just did it. It didn't really find a mask for that, so it just gave me the brush stroke. Now, on mobile, you use your finger and paint, since you don't have object aware, and you let go, it just does it. On desktop, you have the ability to click the apply button. So you can go mask everything you want and click apply, so it generates it in one step, as opposed to having to wait 2 or 3 times. Like if I had done the sign and the little post on mobile, it would, and I didn't do it all at once, it would do it twice. So I like this apply button because the apply button just says, okay, I'll wait for you to finish, and then you click apply when you're ready. So when I click apply, that will actually do what Photoshop has been doing for the past year. It will actually use generative fill. So in Lightroom's ecosystem, you have a choice. You can use the remove tool, which is local, doesn't use generative fill, uses the pixels of the image, is great for small things, or you can use generative remove, which uses generative AI, our Firefly engine, to remove things. And as you can see, just if I get out of this, how much of a better job that did on this object. So there's no like it literally replaced it with what should have been there. And that was just not possible before a month ago, or actually, yeah, that's when I showed it. But before a couple of weeks ago, that was just not possible in Lightroom. You just couldn't do that before. So you'd have to go to Photoshop before. Now you can do this right in Lightroom. And just like on Photoshop, you do get the option. Here, let me go back to this one. Got it. I just want to get out of that. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to do it again. Cancel. I was going to go back to that point. There we go. Show overlay hover. There we go. keep clicking when I don't want to. So you got a point, just like when you do any other non-destructive option in Lightroom. So you can go ahead and this is non-destructive. If you want to get rid of that, undo it, delete it later, come back and redo it, you can. Now, again, I said it's for complicated things. Well, that signpost was fairly complex because you had to put something behind it that looked real. But what if it was something like this guy's hands reaching into this, looks like cold salmon jar or whatever that is, and you wanted to get rid of all of that? Well, that would definitely mean in the past a trip to Photoshop. But I'm going to try it. I'm going to go ahead and make my brush bigger, much bigger. And I'm just going to go ahead, and I got object aware turned on. I'm just going to go ahead and mask all of this. Now, again, because I've got the object aware turned on, when I let go, first thing it's going to do is say, this is the mask I think you should have. And it's wrong. It missed part of the sleeve. So I'm just going to go ahead and paint that back in. And I also want all of this stuff down here at the bottom on the table. So it just said, okay, I gave you a mask. You want more than that. Go ahead and paint more than that in. And you're probably wondering, well, Terry, why'd you paint this part at the bottom of the table? That doesn't have the jar or anything. Again, because a broader selection tends to do a better job. So I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. And with generative fill, I could do this a million times in a row and I never know what I'm going to get until I do it. So sometimes, depending on what it is, it may just remove it perfectly. Sometimes it may say, oh, you want food. You want some more food there. I'll put more food there for you. So remove can sometimes mean replace. But in this case, it did do the remove. And just like Photoshop, you get 3 choices of what to choose from as far as results. So I like that one a lot. That one works too. That one works. They all work, but probably that's going to be my favorite. So again, generative remove now in Lightroom, Lightroom Classic, Lightroom Mobile, Lightroom on iPad, Camera Raw, across the board. All right, what do you guys think so far?
Woo!
All right, there we go. Just have to make sure you're still seeing me. All right, so I see a question here. Replacing image from another. Okay, so this question came up, and I haven't got to Photoshop yet, but he's asking, is there a way you can source a reference image to use for generative fill? For example, replacing an image from another photo I've taken. Yes, and I'm going to get to that as soon as I get to Photoshop. All right, so let's keep going to Lightroom for a few more minutes, and then we'll jump over to Photoshop, and I'll show you what you're asking. All right, let's go ahead and pop over to this one. We've all been photobombed at some point by, if nothing else, but rabbit ear fingers or someone literally in the photo. And maybe it's someone that's not trying to photobomb you. They're just in the background and you don't want them there. So same thing. This would have been a trip to Photoshop because there's no way I could have removed that guy with Lightroom in the past. Now I can take a shot at it using, I'm going to turn off the object aware this time. I'm just going to, because I don't need it to be very precise. I just wanted to go ahead and get rid of all of this guy, all of this. I don't need a precise mask, so I don't need it to calculate an object aware. And let's just go ahead and get rid of that. And so as soon as I let go, it didn't do anything because I hadn't hit apply, and I need to get his hand. And even though I'm going over her head, it's okay because it's AI, so it should be smart enough to figure out leave her hair, just get rid of the guy. So I think I got everything, his arms, his torso, his head, and let's again hit apply. So another difference is in Lightroom, you only have this generative remove. In Photoshop, you've got the ability to remove, but also you got the ability to add. So you can select an area and say, add something there. We're going to be doing that on the photos that are for the Colorpop event. So once again, these are the 3 results. I would probably pick that one or that one. So either number 1 or number 3. But that's the photo bomber gone. 3 is maybe a little more distracting, maybe 1. And we get our selfie without the group selfie without the person there. So that's a little bit of what's in Lightroom generative remove. I'm just going to show more here. Once you do, it's one of those things. Once you do something for a friend, they keep sending you more photos. So this is from a friend of mine. Her name's Mia. And she's now texting me regularly. Can you remove this? Can you fix this? Can you change this? She's not a photographer on any level, and certainly doesn't have any of the tools to do this. So first, she sent me some wedding photos because she just got married. Can you take the shadow off the ground? Can you do this? Can you do that? And I guess I was doing them so fast because I had access to all this early. She just started sending me more. So she was like, can you get rid of those little boxes down here, these little electrical boxes? And I was like, 2 seconds later, send her back the results. And it just like blew her away because I was able to do it on my phone. So once again, we'll do generative remove. And again, I don't need a mask that's perfect for this. Now, the other challenge with any time you have a brick wall or any kind of pattern, it's really difficult because you would want, let me do them one at a time. You would want the bricks to still look like bricks when it's done, when it's gone. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep painting this. Go, and one more. There we go. All right. So I always cringe when I see brick pattern because if it doesn't look right, you'll know right away. So we'll see. Not bad. Better. Perfect. So again, it's just that's literally before this tool in Lightroom. You would never get those bricks to match up. All right, so that's just a quick look at some generative remove in Lightroom across the board. Let's go ahead and pop over to Photoshop, and let's take a look at some generative fill and generative remove capabilities in Photoshop. Now, anyone who's ever worn glasses and taken a photo has seen this issue where you have reflections, you have glare, you have things in your glasses from the lights, from the light sources around you. I may even have it now for my lights above me. This has always been a challenge to remove in Photoshop, and I'm not saying that it's perfect now. It's certainly better, but it's just not. It's not ever. I shouldn't say ever. It's always going to be a challenge because it depends on how much of the eye you can see. So in her case, we can still see pretty much both her eyes with a slight reflection around one of them. But if the eyes are completely obscured, the computer doesn't know what should be there. It doesn't know what the eyes used to look like. So you'd have to give it another source with the eyes. So in this case, I'm going to use the object selection tool. And I'm just going to draw a selection around the reflection. And it did it. It selected it for me. So now the other little reflection, I'm just going to use the lasso for that. I got the lasso set to add. So that means I can add to the selection without deleting or removing the other selection. And so if I zoom in so you guys can see this, that's what I've got selected. Oops. Yeah, I got the reflection selected and the little part there. Now, again, I might even come in manually and just add a little bit more to the selection so it's not so tight, because if it's too tight, it could leave a line behind. And so we'll just give it a little bit more selective area. So now we hit generative fill, which now we can type in a prompt. So if I wanted to replace this with something else, I could type in what I want. Or sun or purple sun, like, and it would just try and put a purple sun in that reflection. So I don't want that. And now we normally would leave this blank, and we have left this blank for a year if we don't want to put anything in. But I got a tip from the Photoshop team that they're working behind the scenes that if you type the word remove in, it does a better job. Now, typically typing remove in wouldn't make a difference. But the Photoshop team is now telling me that they're looking for the word remove. So I'll type the word remove in. We'll see if they're right. And we'll see what we get. It's always those last few seconds of anticipation. There we go. Now, it made her eyelash kind of weird here, in my opinion, but it did do it. So let me look at the other choices. That's better. And that's probably as sparse as the other one. So that looks about right. So you see, look at the eye, though. Look at the pupil there. Because I didn't select too far down, it didn't really change that one, except for this one, it had to make up an eye because it raised her eyebrow or her eyelid that much. So I'd probably say either that one or that one would be my choice. And that's what I meant by it depends on how much of the eye is left before this would work well. All right. So I'm a fan, if you haven't noticed yet, of removing things in light or in generative fill, not so much adding, but when we get to the Colorpop images, I definitely have to add because we're going to put some things in. So again, another example of just removing. If I want to get rid of these beach chairs or lounge chairs, I'll just make a big selection around them. I've got my lasso set to add. So as I draw, it will just keep adding to the selection. And I'll leave that little blue pot over there on the left and generative fill, and we'll type the word remove. And then I have two more remove examples, then we're going to move on. And we'll do a generative, we'll do a reference image, which was the question that came up earlier. And then we'll pop over to the Colorpop images. All right. And again, just a beautiful job of removing those beach chairs. That second one's probably the better shadow. They're all good, but I like the second one better. And that's another remove. And now we're going to get to some more complicated removes. Some things that just, you could do it before in Photoshop, but it would take you a while to get it done and get it right. Now, another selfie example, but what if the person in the middle only wants one of herself? In other words, she wanted to remove the two people on the sides. If someone said, go do that in Photoshop a year ago, how long would it take you to do it?
2 hours.
Someone said 2 hours. All right. So I don't know. I would have said, never mind. You can have your money back. I don't want to do this. All right. So to save time, I've already gone ahead and lassoed the women. So I'm just going to go up and say, load my selection in. And so all I did was take a lasso, go around her head, around her body, around her whole body. And I know that when you see the results, you're going to see, look at what it did to her arm. Her arm is already like this, so don't blame generative fill. All right. So generative fill, remove. And this one kind of blew me away when I saw the results the first time I ever did this. Also, the reason I'm doing some examples I've done in the past before is because since a year ago, the image model for Firefly has been improved in Photoshop. Yeah, see what I mean? I don't know. That one probably looks the most realistic to me. Oh, maybe not. Maybe that one. But again, the time saved. Someone said 2 hours. I did it in about 30 seconds. So it's up to you. All right, now this is the one. This is the first example I threw at generative fill that I thought it just can't do this. This was way back a year ago. I got access to the beta the first time it was released internally, and I said, "There's no way it could get rid of the guy in the middle." I just kept trying to throw things at it that it couldn't do, and because if you think about this one, if someone said remove the guy in the middle, you don't have the steps for reference in the background. You'd have to make them up. You don't have this guy on the right's body to use. You'd have to make it up. You'd have to do a lot of work. And this is way more than 2 hours. This could be 2 days. You know how much time, how much realistic of a look you want. So once again, select load selection. I already got one called middle guy. And again, all I did was lasso around him, around the laptop, around his legs, around that, and again, under this guy's arm and under this guy's legs. So once again, generative fill, remove. I remember the first time it took, by the way, it wasn't, when I did it this first time, it took like 10 tries. I kept having to hit, nope, not right yet, do it again, do it again, do it again. And that was a year ago. It took 10 tries.
Wow.
Now it's doing it in one.
That's
So
nuts.
again, look at his pants, look at the steps. How much time would it take you to do that and get it to look right?
Not even try.
Yeah, I wouldn't even try. I would just say, let's pay the guys to come back and sit on the steps by themselves, and we'll shoot them again. No way. There's no way I'm going to get this right. So those are examples of gender remove. All right, so let's move on to a new feature. Now we're going to start putting things into photos. So here's a picture of a dog. Looks very much like mine. I have a dog like this, Jack Russell Terrier mixed, and his name is Pixel. So get it, Pixel. So Pixel loves the beach. She just loves the beach, and this is a city scene. So I thought, well, it'd be cool if we could put Pixel on the beach. Now, two things have to happen. Either we have to select the background or use the brand new on the contextual taskbar remove background feature. There's a button for that now. So all it does is basically it does what you would have done. You would have selected the subject, inverted it, and hid the background. So it just did that for you. It put it on a mask, so the background's still there, and it's just non-destructive. Great. Now, if you had a picture of the beach, you could now import background and go find your picture of the beach, drop it in the background, and then as long as it matched, you're great. But anyone who's done compositing knows it's not just finding the picture, it's finding a picture at the right angle, the right perspective, the right time of day, the right distance from the camera, the right distance from the subject, so that it all looks right. So you're spending more time looking for the right photo or going to shoot it than you are the actual compositing is pretty quick. But having the right background, because if it doesn't look right, people can tell. So instead of me finding an image, I'm just going to do the new generate background. So generate background, and I have a keyboard shortcut for summer day at the beach because I do this example all the time. So that's all I'm typing in the prompt, summer day at the beach. And we'll generate. And again, I get a different result every time, so I don't know what this is going to look like. Cool. 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 See the reflection at the bottom? Balls in the sand and the water. So again, this is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing from the time perspective, mind-blowing from you'd have to find everything at the right angle for it to look right. You'd have to make that reflection yourself. You'd have to do all of that on your own. So I'm loving it. All right, now for the question that came up earlier. Here's a picture of me, and I want to replace my jacket. So I'm going to go to filter. I'm sorry, not filter. Select, load selection in. And again, just taking the time so you don't have to sit there watching me use the lasso tool. So load jacket. There it is. I've selected my jacket, not my hands, not my T-shirt, just the jacket around the laptop. So you see the selection there. Now I want to replace that, and I can click generative fill and type in a prompt, but half the battle in generative fill is typing the right words in. And because the AI is an AI, it's not human. It doesn't know what you want, and so it's having to guess what you want based on what you type. But what if you could show it? What if I could say, hey, I really like these purple lights that are behind me. I really wish I had a purple blazer on instead of the one I had on now. So I just want to see what that would look like. Hey, Gen Phil, use this. This is what I want you to put on me. So if I go back, now when I go to generative fill, there is a new button right here that is for a reference image. So I can go choose a photo that I've taken already. And let me go to my Photoshop folder for my reference images. There's the purple blazer. Yep, same image. Open it. So now it knows what I want. I don't have to type anything in because I've shown it a picture. I've shown it what I want it to use. Generate. If you think about, again, this is another one I would never try this unless I had a picture of me. I would try changing the color of the one I already have on before I would try changing to a different one. So, but wait, it gets better. That jacket exists, right? And this is not an exact match. It's close. It's the right texture, the right style, the right color. But it's not the identical jacket, and that's great because that way we're not violating anyone's copyright. But what if you wanted something doesn't exist? What if I wanted to do this? I want that blue jean jacket. You know where that blue jean jacket came from? Firefly. Right. I just blank canvas, blue jean jacket, and it generated it. So this is no one's copyright. It does not exist. So now if I go back to mine and I replace that reference image with a jacket that doesn't exist and doesn't even have the sleeves, by the way, and I generate it, I can generate clothes based on the description and then put them on people.
Oh my gosh. That's nuts.
I know, right? It's nuts. It is. Okay, so that's having a little fun with generative fill across the board. So let's close all these up. You guys hopefully are inspired now to go do things with your photos. And now let's go have some fun with your photos. Okay, so I've got some examples that were shot, and I have one submission also that was submitted. And let's go in and see what these are. So let's open up this one. And this looks pretty cool. We have a circus announcer with the big bullhorn and standing on the platform and the cane and the whole 9 yards out in the middle of a field. So we need to put this in a circus environment. So first thing I would always do is this is a shot right out of the camera. So this is a raw file. I'm going to go to my develop panel, and I'm going to go to my basic panel, and I'm going to do the things I always do. So for example, I would change the color profile to maybe something more appropriate, like camera portrait. It does a very subtle difference. Then I would hit auto to kind of like have Lightroom kind of tone the image the way it thinks it should based on AI. But again, I could disagree with some of these sliders. So for example, I might want it a little brighter. Okay, and I might want the shadows up a little bit more than what they are. Great. Okay, so now that I got a foundation for this image, the rest I need to do in Photoshop. So the way we get over to Photoshop is either with a keyboard shortcut, which is what I always do. You can also right-click and say Edit in Photoshop. And that will open up a copy of this image in Photoshop. So I don't have to duplicate the layer right away or do any of that, because if I mess up, the original's back in Lightroom anyway. All right, so now we could approach this. This one is easier because she's already set and ready to go. We just need to replace her background. We have some other ones that we need to do some work on before we do the replace background. So let's do this one first. So same thing, remove background. Now this is the downside to remove background. Since remove background is based on select subject, it doesn't always guess right what the subject is. Obviously, it's going to guess her, but you're going to see the problem. So I said remove background. And see, and this time it did it right. Sometimes it doesn't get the pedestal because it doesn't think that's part of the subject, but this time it did. Okay, great. I'll show you on another one that we're going to do that if it doesn't guess right, what to do. But I built all that up, and I don't even have to do it this time. So next up, what do we want in the background? Because now we've got the subject separated. We got a little bit of grass going on there, and we can remove that later. But let's go ahead and generate our background first. I'm open for suggestions on the prompt. What do you? I can type in circus, blah blah blah. But what do you want?
Circus tent.
I
Circus
know
tent.
circus tent. Anything else? All right, no, you know what? Stop. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to show you why I asked for anything else. Because if you give it circus tent and that's it, this is what you're going to get. Circus tent. And the reason I know this because I've already done it. First thing I said, circus tent. Now you got to think about all the ways an AI could interpret that. Okay, that's one variation. It's another variation. Another variation.
Okay.
What are we missing?
Be more specific with what you
Being
want.
more specific, exactly. Because you just said fill the background with a circus tent. Are we in the tent? Are we outside the tent? Are the people there? Like, so in other words, it did exactly what I did the first time. I typed, oh, circus tent. Oh, well, that's not what I wanted. Because it doesn't know it can't read my mind yet. It doesn't know what I want. So I have to tell it. So how can we be more descriptive?
Inside. Red and white.
Inside. All right. Inside a circus
Red
tent.
and white.
What else? I heard something else.
Red and white circus tent.
Red and white circus tent? Okay. Okay.
Let's see. I was thinking that too. Stands of people. Stands of
How
people.
about with a spotlight?
Yeah.
Oh. I was like, but there's no way. Ooh.
All right. How about inside a circus tent? Inside a circus tent with a spotlight and an elephant riding a bike. Come on. It's a circus. It's AI. We can tell it anything we want. Didn't get my elephant. Okay, so now we're starting to run into a classic issue with Gen AI, that it pays more attention to what's in front of the prompt and less attention to what's behind at the end. So adding that towards the end, it just kind of ignored it. So let's reword this. Let me cut that out. Inside a red and white circus tent with take out the word and. All right, so here's what I'm doing. Inside a red and white circus tent with an elephant riding a bike. Let's see what that gets us. Still not getting my elephant though.
Whoa.
Kind of trippy. Just want to try an experiment here. And if this doesn't do it, I'm going to put the elephant up front. All right.
Maybe if you put her outside of the circus tent and say with the circus tent in the background, it might be easier.
Well, let
Because
me try
of the-
one thing. Yeah, let me try one thing first. Elephant riding a bike inside a red and white circus. Okay. It just does not want to give me my elephant. Okay. What was it? What was the other suggestion you guys had?
Maybe if you prompted to have her on the outside of the circus tent or the circus tent in the background. So because there's grass at the bottom of that thing she's standing on, so it would look more natural, I think.
All right, let's see.
What is that?
I like that. All right, fine. Here, let me try something. All right, let's break it down to the simplest form first. I don't know what that was.
Has nails.
All right, I guess that's what a bike would look like for an elephant.
It's like a petty cow.
And you thought it was bad with human hands. Look at the paw. Right. We're getting closer.
What? That's so weird.
Okay, we're getting there. All right, so now I changed to a motorcycle. Apparently, that likes motorcycles better. Elephants riding a motorcycle in a circus.
His nails are done.
There, we're getting there now.
What?
Oh my god, I'm still living in dreams.
Well, we were getting there, and then it went completely off the rails. And you were worried that this would replace your job. All right, we're there. We're just going to leave out the elephant. We're close enough. Okay, now, for the sake of time, let's move on to our next image. All right, now this one's a challenging one because I see what you're doing here. You're putting the person on a tightrope without actually putting the person on a tightrope. So there's a stool there that needs to go. Tightrope's there, and when I first looked at this image, I thought, oh, that's easy, done, and I did it, and I was like, oh, but wait a minute. They wouldn't be walking on a tightrope 2 feet off the ground. They'd be walking on a tightrope in the air. So there's a little bit more of a challenge to it. So let's take care of this one first. Develop. Let's hit auto, and let's lighten it up a little bit more. And, oh, that's temperature. Hang on. I was like, wait, why is it changing the color? Exposure. There we go. Good. Okay. Now let's go ahead and open this in Photoshop. All right. First issue is the stool. Let's get rid of that first. Then there's another issue where foot's not actually on the rope. So next time you're shooting this, put the rope on the stool, have her put her foot right on the rope. All right, next up. Let's go and use the remove tool. So Photoshop has had a remove tool as well. It does not use Gen Fill. It just uses remove. I've got it enabled so that it does not remove after each stroke. In other words, let me paint the whole thing in first, then I'll tell you when I'm ready. Otherwise, every time I would do a paint stroke, it would try and remove it. I'm going to come all the way down here where I see red. Just paint up to there. Paint around this ring. Good. Paint up the other legs of the stool. And again, just giving a nice broad selection here. Same thing here. And now I can go above it and get to the stool itself. Nothing wrong with doing this in pieces as well. So you can do like each leg if you want it. I'm just going to go ahead and tell it to do it all at once. All right, so now we'll click the check mark to say okay, they accept. Not too bad. And we got a little mess up here. Go ahead and take care of some of this. So now I'm going to use the history brush to kind of paint some of this back in. I don't like what it was doing to her shoe. Okay, so now that I got that paint up, and I'm going to use the remove tool to get rid of those. And I'll turn back on, remove after each stroke. Great. Okay. So now we can try this again with the remove tool. But this may be a case where, the remove tool is just not going to do it. Okay, so now we switch over to the lasso. And once again, generator fill, remove. All right, better. I'm making a composite layer because it's saying, hey, you can't remove on that gen fill layer. There we go. And we're there. Okay, so now we have our person floating in midair and we have our rope. And now it's time. Now it's time to get rid of the background and then put the two together. And then we'll worry about replacing the background once we have a bigger area. We'll put her more up in the air and get a bigger area. So let's try to remove back. Well, yep, we're good. Let's try to remove background. And again, I made that composite layer, so we're on a new layer that composites everything I've just done. And let's say remove background, and it's most likely gonna get rid of the rope. That's what I thought. So that's what I meant by, remember when I said it might get rid of the stool too, because it doesn't think that's part of the subject. So it got rid of it thinking it's the background. In this case, it got rid of the rope thinking that's the background. So here's what I want to do. I want to temporarily hide the mask that it made. It made a mask. I'm going to hold down my shift key and click to just temporarily hide it. Now I'm going to go to my object selection tool. And in the object selection tool, I'm going to hang on, that's not my object selection tool. There's my object selection tool. I'm going to tell it that I want to use a lasso instead of a rectangle. So I'm just going to lasso the rope. And it makes a selection of the rope. Okay, so now that the rope is selected, I want to just go back to the mask. So shift key again, turn the mask back on, but my selection, get out of this tool. My selection is still there. So if we zoom in, we can still see where I selected where the rope will be. Now all I have to do is to tell it to put the rope back is to fill the mask with white, because that will reveal that selection. So I have white as my foreground color, Option or Alt delete, and that puts the rope back. Okay, so now we're there. We've got our subject and our subject with no background. Now we need to put the rope. We either need to put her down on the rope, or we need to put the rope up. One of the two. And since she's easily selectable now, it's just easier to move her down. But keep in mind that this is just a mask with no, the real person is still there. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this layer, turn off the original one, so as a safety, and then I'm going to tell it to apply the mask. In other words, don't make it non-destructive. I already got the non-destructive copy. This is now just her, no background whatsoever. And so now I can go in and say that I want to use the object selection tool again. This time I do want to use a rectangle. And I'll just go ahead and select this whole area. Let's see if it does it without the rope. Yep. Okay, then I can just pick her up and move her down. Let's say right about there. Okay. So now we have our tightrope walker on the tightrope. So now we can select the whole thing and move it up. I don't know if that was for me or not, but thanks. All right, and now let's go ahead and I'm deciding if I want more height. So let me zoom out a little bit. I think I do. So I'll grab my crop tool and get out of an aspect ratio. Let's say none. Clear. There we go. Then I can move this up. Oh, what's it doing here? I don't want generative expand. There we go. I'm just going to do transparent. So in other words, I don't need to generate anything. Just give me a transparent, more space. Now I could try something. Let's go out here. I just want to see what this would do. Would it extend my rope if I do generative expand? I've never tried this on an empty layer like this, so I don't know what it's going to do. Thinking about it.
We're gonna break it.
Would be the first time. I don't know what it's doing there. It might be taking into account the other layers that are down there too. Okay, that did not work the way I wanted to, so let's just go ahead and do what I was going to do, which is transparent. And we'll just go down. All right, so now that we got our height for our tightrope walker, let's go get out of the crop tool. And I'm going to go ahead and say that I want to select everything. So I'll use my object selection tool. And just select everything. And we'll invert that selection. So now that it's everything, or it's just the background now. And now we use generative fill to fill that background in with a circus inside a circus tent. Or, well, let's see what it says. Let's see what it does. If I do inside a circus tent with all that height, I want to see what it's going to do. Otherwise, I can say at the top inside of a circus tent. Let's see what it does by itself. Okay, got rid of my rope. That's definitely not going to work. Okay, let's deselect all of, or undo all of that. And let's see what we got here. Is that rope still unselected? Hold on. Or better yet, let's just go old school on it. Select the background. Okay, let's try one more time. If this doesn't work, I have one more one more way that I can do this. All right, let's undo it. Let's do it a different way. Let's make a new layer. Yep.
Is there a way we could, is there a way you could keep her in the original background but use generative fill to like fill in the cutout where she was, even though you moved her up higher? Does that make sense?
I think I have an idea. Maybe.
All right, let me try this first because I'm not sure I understand what you mean. When you say fill in the cutout,
like you raised her up, like if we kept the rolling hills in the field, but you just raised her up in the frame so she's like higher up in the sky, and then that cutout shape from her from the original image, you filled that in with generative fill so that it filled in the rolling hills where she was.
that could work.
Okay. I was curious.
Yep. All right. Yeah, there's nothing to do there. I want to do generate. Edit. Generate image. Photo. There we go.
Ooh, better.
So the difference was what I took out of the equation was I took the subject out of the generate equation. In other words, I told it, don't worry about trying to do it behind this particular subject while it's on that same layer and select it. I made a new layer and using here, I'll show it to you again. So delete that layer. I just made a brand new empty layer. And that way it doesn't have anything to base it on except what's above it. But it's not used. In other words, it doesn't have to mess with the layer above it. So it keeps that separate. And now in Photoshop, there's also another new feature called Generate Image. So this is like the Firefly website built right in. So you could be very specific. You could use a reference image. You could do effects. You can designate whether it's going to be art or photo. You can do that all in this window. So in that case, then I just did inside of a big circus tent. That way, it's now generating it on this empty layer or using this empty layer as a reference, and of course, keeping the subject or without messing with the subject. And if you had a reference image like of a particular circus tent you wanted to use, you can go get that image and import it in like I did earlier. So it's just a workaround so that it doesn't keep messing with the rope. It doesn't keep messing with her. It basically keeps everything intact. And first one, I'll get my better one. And so in this case too, so the other thing I might do is she's all the way up at the top. So I might move her down just a bit. So it's not, she's at the top of the tent. Just give her a little bit more headroom. But that would be about it. Maybe something like that. Edit, generate image. And because she is on her own layer, you can just move her even after the fact if it's not positioned quite the way you want.
Okay.
Getting the idea?
Yeah.
All right. That would be the one I'd go with. And again, she's on her own layer. So I like the way it also even, like, she looks lit up there as well. So maybe right about there. All right. So there's our first. Here's our second. And let's do one more real quick. This one should be easier. We have a juggler. I'm only going to do one of these. Let's do the balls. And same thing. Develop module first. We'll do it's a portrait. We'll do auto. We'll do a little bit brighter exposure. We'll do a little bit better on the shadows. And then we'll take this right over into Photoshop. Okay. Now, since we don't see his feet, we're going to keep him at the bottom of the frame. Although we could try generating his feet. Done that before with generative expand. Now I got to do it just because I thought about it. Let's see. Now, this either goes really well or really bad. I'm just curious. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's awful. Hey, Sean, how's it going? Just looking at people in the chat. Yep, that's really bad. Feet are backwards. That's better. Yeah, it's that's actually livable, but let's just undo it. We'll keep it the way it was. All right, anyway, I just want to show you how an option. You can also go generative expand with no issue going left and right as well. So if you want this to be a wider shot instead of a taller shot, you can certainly do this. And no prompt, it just figures out what the background is and extends it. George is asking, when will I have another session of how I would edit your photos? We're going to do another one for Colorpop next week, but we'll do one of my usual ones soon. I don't have a date yet, but soon. Yeah, that just works great. Okay, so now that we got that, the request was he's got 3 balls in the air now. Could we give him more? So we could do that, but let's give him a different background first. So again, I'm going to create that composite layer, holding down pretty much the left side of my keyboard. Mac, it would be Command Option Shift E. PC would be Control Alt Shift E. And that just makes a composite layer of everything you've done so far. So now I got that composite layer. It's just easier to remove the background when you have that done already. So if I say remove background again, I don't know if it'll keep the existing balls. I don't really care because I'm going to make new ones anyway. It kept one. Okay. So once again, we'll do generate background inside of a circus tent. I know we're over time. We'll be done in just a minute. How's everyone holding up?
Woo, great.
Good. I'm going to say generate again. I don't have to change anything. I just want some more choices. I do want to change one thing. Inside of a big circus tent. Although that result could be okay. All right, I think I'll go with this one. It's just a less distracting background. Now let's zoom in on what we have here. We already have that one ball in the air. Let's just go ahead and grab our lasso. And I'm just going to go ahead and make a lasso around that area that he would be juggling in. Generative fill. All right, let's just try red balls first. Because I could, my debate is, do I just do red balls? Do I do juggling red balls? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Let's try juggling shiny red balls. Getting there.
Yes.
Getting there. Nope. Now, another new option is that you have the ability to say, generate similar. So if you see one you like, but you wanted to take another shot at it, you just hit the little menu in the upper corner of the results. Let me see with this one again. Maybe that one's even better. Generate similar. And it just says, do it again, more like this. Also, I've found that specifying a number, it doesn't really get that yet. Like 10 red balls, it doesn't really do it. And also, my selection is probably a little too far out on this edge, so I'd bring it in tighter because it's using that space there. They're too big. That would be it. But then I'd maybe just literally manually move that one over so it looks better. So I could do another composite layer, or no, I wouldn't. I would duplicate this layer. And then I would apply that mask. No. Apply layer mask. We delete it. Let's see where those other balls are coming from. They're coming from this, right? Yeah, that's it. Okay, good. And oh, I forgot. Hang on. Sorry, I forgot the balls aren't separate. It's the whole background. So let's do this. Let's grab our object selection once again. Object selection tool, there we go. Want that one ball, great. And now we'll use our content aware move tool. What now? Oh, because it's a smart object. That should not be a smart object. Let me put it on its own layer. All right, put the ball on its own layer. Then I can move it over. And then I can go back and get rid of the other one. Should not take that long. There we go, but it did it. All right, and I tighten it a little piece up a little bit. You get the idea.
Cool.
All right, any questions before I have to let you guys go?
Is there any way we could go back to the tightrope walker picture and keep the rolling hills background? The question that Marina was asking earlier?
Sure.
I have a question. Is it possible that you duplicate the subject and then remove the original one and then bring the subject back and then just move her lower to the rope? Is that possible?
Yep. There's 50 ways to do it. All right, so in this one, you want to keep the original background,
Yes.
and then what?
Move her up in the photo so it looks like she's higher off the ground.
Okay. Let's see. Just deciding what's easier. First of all, okay, she's there. Okay, so she's by herself. So let's go to this layer. Move her up. And then we could gen fill in the background. Okay. Thanks, Rob. Glad you could join us. Just thinking about it.
Can you get it?
It's amazing how spoiled you get by 15 seconds. When it takes longer than that, you're like, what are you doing? Hurry up. Oh, that one it just didn't do. Kind of an issue. Okay, hang on. Let me make the background a little simpler, or the selection a little simpler. Let's try that. If not, I'll do it in pieces. Yep, we broke it. All right. Let's do it in pieces. All right, after a little bit of cleanup, there you are.
Yeah, so, hey, awesome.
So yeah, I mean, I still go in and touch up the background a little bit where it looks like it's blurred, but other than that, so that I'd probably do a gen fill on. But you're good to go.
Sweet. Thank you.
Easy.
You're welcome. Thank you, Marina.
Thank you so much, Terry. We appreciate the tutorials. The new features are really, really cool too. I'm excited to play with them.
Absolutely. And like I said, there's 50 ways to do this. So whichever way you approach, you can't go wrong. It's whichever way works best for you.
Definitely.
All right, I'm going to end the stream. So people watching the stream, catch you next time. And